To handle that session is none other than a visionary leader, innovator, and marketing expert. Please let's welcome Dr. Victor Afolabi. A round of applause for him, please. He's going to handle the Q&A. All right.
Dr. John, can we bring you up, sir? Thank you. Yeah, I think he deserves a better round of applause. It's never late. Oh, see the times have changed. I thought you knew that these words will never ever wait for you. The water's gone past times of fighting. So drop your guns and your swords. Yes. So for the next 10 minutes thereabout, we do think that there's a need to be able to get more from your world of experience. I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Sam and all the organizers. And just to create some context, there will be another significant 2.5-hour session with the VIPs where there'll be some round-robin sessions, plenary sessions and all that. But for every other person in the general session, we do think that they will get a bit more import from your world of experience if we just have a 10-minute engagement, and thanks for obliging that. Yeah, okay, thank you. So many of the questions will speak to the generality of the people who are part of this conference, who desire the shift experience, like we said, and who are here. And to start, for me, listening to you, quite inspiring, but you did start your entrepreneurial journey from the United States. And here you are now, very focused in Africa, trying to do a lot in Nigeria. Just from a contextual point of view, first is what made you start the entrepreneurial journey? Because with all the Jackpot people, you are trying to Jackpot there to go and work. Even if you're starting from the warehouse or doing care, everybody just want to get out there. So first is what made you start the entrepreneurial journey there? And secondly, why, after being so successful there, why are you focusing and indexing a bit more in Nigeria and in Africa? Do you want to just help?
Thank you, Dr. Afolabi, for the question. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? I think, first of all, I want to make a correction. My entrepreneurial journey did not start in America. It started in Nigeria.
Oh, great, great.
When I was a young man, 11, 12, 13 years old, you know, at the time in Nigeria, it was typical. During Christmas, you do turkey, people will give people turkeys and Christmas cards and big cards and all that. So I was doing that already at 12, 13. I was making money doing that already for myself, where I'll get a list of people around that needed turkeys, and I'll mark up the price, put a margin on it, and sell turkeys during Christmas and sell Christmas cards. So I was already doing that. And I think I want to share something else to give more context, you know, based on what I shared earlier in your question as well. You know, I mentioned that both of my parents have at best a 6th grade formal education, primary 6. And I was born in Ajegule. And my dad at the time, my parents at the time they were traders, and eventually things shifted for them. I think that's the right word. And they became distributors for Unilever or Lever Brothers, okay? And so I came from a business family, if you will. They were trading and eventually became distributors for Unilever. And every day they'll come home with sacks of, there was no POS, no digital devices at the time. So every day they'll come with sacks of money and dump it in the room, and we'll count the money every day. So I was exposed to business and even entrepreneurship from an early age. So I've just always been wired to know how to go make money, to go make my own money, what I wanted to do. So when I went to America to go to college, when I was in college, my friends, I'll tell you something interesting. And I should share this here. I have never written a CV in my entire life. I've never written a resume in my life. And I say this because when I was in university, my friends were already looking for jobs for all the big companies at the time, and I had no interest in that. Well, I had already seen opportunities to solve problems. And I read a lot. And Dr. Nikki, I'm looking forward to reading 4 of your books. I read a lot. So I had read and understood at the time that the healthcare industry was 20% of US GDP, 20% of the economy. It's the largest part of the economy, by the way. And also at the time, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was the age of the internet. There was internet everywhere. And I was privileged to have attended the University of Texas, where that, at the time, Dallas was considered the telecom capital of the world. All the biggest telecom companies were headquartered in Dallas. Nortel, Ericsson, Alcatel, Sim, just name them. They're all there. So they invested a lot in my university. So I was on the cutting edge of technology. I saw that. And I knew internet technology was going to change the world in very profound ways. So subconsciously, I had the idea that I wanted two things. I wanted something that was going to give me an opportunity that had enough market opportunity, big market. Because from day one when I started business, I tell people this all the time and it surprises them. I did not start out to just build a business and make some money. From day one, I wanted to build a multi-billion-dollar company, from day one. So I wanted something that had enough market share, market opportunity to give me billions. The healthcare industry was 20% of GDP, so that was already in my subconscious. Now, I didn't want to spend my whole life doing that or spend several generations doing that. I needed something or an industry where there was rapid growth, where you could build wealth very quickly in a marketplace that's big enough, and that was technology. So I had come to that understanding in my subconscious. So I was looking for an opportunity to find large enough market share and rapid growth. Does that make sense to you?
Makes a lot of sense.
So I'll say one last thing. So I talked about starting a company. What I didn't tell you, I'll tell you a few more details about that story. So that was in my subconscious. I was looking for big, in business you call it total addressable market. Big market opportunity and rapid growth. That's what I was looking for. So when I was in college, and I don't want you thinking my parents were well off and paid for school. I struggled. A lot of the biggest hardships that I experienced in my life, I experienced it in America. Hardships that are traumatizing that I don't want to get into. You hinted at some of them. But it was all designed for glory, for blessings. Anyway, so when I had the opportunity to run across an opportunity where I had an aunt that I was working in a healthcare organization. I went to go visit. I was a broke college student. She was going to give me money. And I started asking questions, and I realized in that business, they needed technology, and I became the computer person for that business. I'm just summarizing my story. You'll hear more later. So in my subconscious, I was looking for healthcare and technology. So when I got into her business, and I said, oh, you're here. Do you have computers that can do this and this and this and that? And she said, no. I said, okay, let me help you do that. She took me to her boss. I started doing that. The rest is history.
Thank you very much. He deserves a round of applause. In case you're struggling a bit with hearing that, I'm sure that you'll see the video clips at the end, and if you play it over and over again, I'm sure you get the import of it. In case you're struggling with I think the accent. In case you're struggling, so you might need to just speak a bit slowly, I guess. Thank you. Two things I picked up from there. First is the context in which you come out from is quite important. I would liken it to mentorship. I would say that's why there's a conference like Shift where people can come and you can begin to be nurtured in the direction you want to go. And I think it's good that you said your family, home, created a huge opportunity. But more importantly is the second part of it. I know quite a number of people in here and Nigerians believe a good way, and yes, it's right to be able to change your circumstances, the entrepreneurial journey. And I like what you said. It's not just identifying a gap in the market. It's making sure there's a market in the gap. So at times people are creating this exciting thing, I see this gap. The question is there sufficient market in that gap you've seen to either sustain you to be a millionaire or billionaire as the case may be? And in your case, you not only identified the gap, but you also saw that there was a big market in the gap that could give you the billions, and thank you very much for that. Because we have just 5 more minutes to wrap up, I got a couple of questions, but I'll tie 2 of them and then we can wrap it up. In case you want to hear a bit more, we're going to have 45-minute session in the next VIP. You should have paid for the VIP session. I apologize. And so we will take that on, and then you'll be able to ask questions also in the VIP, but for now we'll just take it this way. My second question, and we'll wrap up on that, is first, for quite a number of people who want to have that shift to change the trajectory from the very linear progression to a more geometric uplift, what will be your advice to them? 3 pieces of advice for someone who wants to change their trajectory, especially into entrepreneurship. And I would say, what were your own biggest challenges? So you did a shift from what were things you were doing purely to move into entrepreneurship, and to be able to make sure there was a trajectory that was not a non-linear one. What will be the challenges you faced, and what will be your 3 biggest advices to anybody that wants to make that kind of non-linear move?
Thank you. Great question. Let me start with the second question
the
about
advice.
just advice. And we get advice all the time, too much even. But one thing that I think entrepreneurs, or even anyone that wants success in life to know, is whatever it is that you're doing, stick with it.
Persistence.
Do it, and do it, and do it, and do it, and let everybody know that's what you do. Let me give you a very simple example. If there's some guy down the street from here that sells the best suya in that spot, right? And everybody knows he sells the best suya. If you go there on Monday, he's there. On Tuesday, he's there. You enjoy it and you tell your friends about it. And you keep telling people, over time, more and more people are going to go there. You can do anything and become successful at it. You stick with it and be the best at it. Right? But don't do suya today and akara tomorrow and start transportation tomorrow and logistics. Whatever you do, stick to it and be the absolute best at it, and let people know you for that so they know where to find you all the time. I think that's one piece of advice that I'll share. Now, I get questions about what are some of the challenges that I faced. I always think about them as, in my earlier comments, I said, I think of them as opportunities. I'm always thinking, how do I solve problems? The way my mind is wired, I'm always thinking scale. How can I do things at scale? You heard about cassava. So the way it has to be purpose-driven. Like, how can we solve a problem here? So if you're an entrepreneur, I think I'll change my message and say, find a problem that you're passionate about solving and give it your all and show up every day. It sounds so simple, but you'll make a success of it. I've touched things now in different sectors that I just cared about, and we've continued to make a success of it. But please, permit me to do one thing before we get off the stage. I want to recognize, I have some of my colleagues in the room, and I'm getting too much credit. They should get all the credit for what we're accomplishing at Cavista Holdings. So I'd like my colleagues in the room to please rise. Please rise. Please rise. Please rise. Please, let's give them a round of applause. These are all members of Cavista Holdings. They're just here with me. Please give them another round of applause. They are incredibly smart people, incredibly committed people. They should get all the credit. So let me attach a piece of advice to that, and I'll stop. They say if you want to go fast, go alone. The reason why I'm going far is those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing I still have 3 more minutes, I'll throw in a bonus question.
Good.
The Economist, I was reading the Economist article, January 2025. And it says, African businesses, too small, too many. And what the article was talking about was there were just too many micro businesses in Africa, too many subsistence businesses in Africa, and that Africa needed big businesses for it to be able to address its problems. On the import of that, and this is a shift conference where we expect to see dramatic shifts for people attending this conference. To make it relatable, can you think of, in the last few years, any significant shifts you did that transformed your business, the way you do things, your organization in any way, just something that the people can take away as a case study, practical experience, as an icing on the cake.
Thank you. You know, before I answer his question directly, I want to address what he said about what the economist was saying. I don't totally agree with that in a lot of ways, because I think there's a lack of historical perspective when others are shaping the narrative about Africans or the African continent. And our reality today is not divorced from our history. But that's a whole other conversation, so let's not unpack that now. But I mentioned in my comments that, you know, we're starting to see success with unicorns, companies being built, and I believe that success is going to create more success. That's a whole other conversation. You asked me earlier, you said, why did I come back to Nigeria and invest a lot in Nigeria? And I mentioned in my earlier comments as well that God, the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had me born here in Nigeria. That's important. I believe, they say the deeper a tree is, the deeper the roots are, guess what? The stronger the tree. So when the storm comes, so I believe there was a reason why I was from here. And I had the opportunities I had around the world, and this is where I started. And I'm a product of this environment, and I owe it to give back. And it's my desire that there will be many more people, because of the stories that I share and the experience that I share, that are going to have much, much greater success. That's my desire. Now, as I've invested more in Nigeria, what I'm realizing is I'm having even more success all over the world. It's amazing. You know why? Because there are lots of things that we have to solve for here that I take for granted in other parts of the world. And in some ways, people have said, well, John, you've had all the success because you did this in America and all those places. So I'm eternally curious. I want to learn everything and know why. So in some ways, I want to see, Reverend Sam is like that too. We've had lots of conversations about that. I wanted to see if we could create that same excellence here in Nigeria. So people say, well, it happened because it happened in America. Ladies and gentlemen, all the success that we've had has happened here by Nigerians. No outside expertise, by Nigerians. So I'll say the last one about Agbeyawa Farms, because that's one that's very personal to me. And amazing. We didn't set out to build the biggest cassava farm in the world. So just indulge me so I can share this quick story. We had some experts. We have some Brazilian experts that we came to come look at a company we just acquired. And as part of their visit, they were going to go visit the farm to see where the raw material from cassava will go into this processing plant. And I had visited the Brazilian friends of mine a few years ago. So when they came to the farm, they saw it. I was in Dallas at the time. So they came, they toured it. So the guy called me and said, John, I need to talk to you. I said, what do you want to talk about? I said, I'm busy. I'm in a meeting. He said, I need to talk to you as quickly as possible. So about an hour later, I called him. And he said, when I went, I saw a sea of cassava more than I had ever seen in my life. And I've been to Brazil. Brazil is like one of the bigger cassava producing countries in the world. And I certainly thought they're more advanced. They're doing a lot more things than we were. And I thought what we're doing was small. He said, I believe what I just saw today, because they toured it for hours, almost the whole day, and they couldn't see it. You can tour our farm for days and still don't see the end of it. By Nigerians, all mechanized, world class. I invite you to come see it. He said, I believe I've seen the biggest cassava farm in the world. I said, whatever, go away. That cannot be true. He said, I think I just saw that. I said, no, you're from Brazil. You guys are more advanced. You certainly have bigger companies that have done this. He said, no, I think I've just seen the biggest I've ever seen in the world. There's no one location in Brazil or anywhere in the world that's as large as what I just saw today. And he's an expert. So you do the Google search for the largest cassava farm in the world. So when he said that, I was stunned. So I pulled out Google, ChatGPT, what is the largest cassava farm in the world? I was shocked. It took us 4 years. I didn't believe that. 4 years. But let me connect that to the shift that happened, because that's a question. What I've found is as we've poured ourselves into, and this is in a part of Ekiti, that used to be the capital of criminality and kidnapping and banditry and every vice that you can imagine. Today, because of our investment, it's been transformed and it's flourishing economically. But let me make the point about the shift that happened. As we've solved problems here that are so complex, no infrastructure, nothing, we've had to build the roads ourselves. We've done everything ourselves, all by ourselves, Nigerians. As we've done that, we've acquired muscle and know-how and understanding and capacity that we didn't have before, that's now helping all my other businesses around the world even flourish and do better. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Because I'm solving things that are a lot more complex, a lot more difficult. So I'm having muscle that I didn't plan to build that I'm now applying globally, and that's accelerating our growth, and it's helping everything we do globally shift to another level. That wouldn't have happened if I did not come back to Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I think that's the import of it, and I think that's what. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.